Understanding the right questions to ask is imperative. And I do a lot of what I call teaching hospital when I take calls with potential clients, because so many people, specifically around, let's say, websites, it's all over the map. It's like buying a car. You can buy a car that's going to be used and 12 years old and cost $2,500, or you could buy something that's just coming off the lot, like a Tesla, and it's going to be tremendously more. But they're both cars. And so understanding what the price parameters are is really important. And I think that can be one of the biggest hurdles to figure out. Okay, where do I start? Who do I trust? Where am I investing this money? There are certain exercises you can do independently, and I'll try and give you some of the tools for where to find those. There are other areas where you will definitely need outside help, like creating the visual identity for your brand, unless, of course, you have folks like that in your network that you can tap on. In terms of the types of questions that you're asking and the expectations you can have for budget, it can start anywhere from going to something like 99designs.com, which is a crowdsourced network of designers, and you pay a flat cost. There's one for just creating a logo. There's one for creating logo and collateral. There's one for creating logo, collateral, and website. You're not going to necessarily get the end result of your brand for the end of time, but it's a great MVP option when you're really looking closely at costs and just need some kind of form to get out the door with. So there are very affordable, low-cost options. Last I looked, I think those ranged anywhere from $500 to $5,000 to get something out of that. There's not going to be a lower cost for entry other than that. The other thing you can do is go towards a design school and see if there are any design students that are interested in creating a professional portfolio. You can get them for a lot cheaper. However, they're going to be junior and they're going to need a lot more direction. They may not necessarily understand deadlines or how to properly manage themselves in order to make sure that you get the work, because they're going to be young and junior. But that is another way. The other suggestion I would have is hiring a freelance designer off of a platform like Fiverr, where you can network freelancers from around the world. In those instances, you will need to write a creative brief so that those folks know how to articulate the thing it is that you're asking for. If you're working with an agency, you don't necessarily need to go through that step. The agency should be able to extract that information from you and give you a really true sense of how to do that. It's going to be a more expensive option to go down that route. A lot of times I will talk to businesses, to potential clients, and they may not be at a place where they're ready for something as robust as what we do. And if that is the instance, or they just don't have the financial liquidity to do that in that hot second, I will send them to one of those types of avenues. But, you know, there's no making a $2,500 car from 20 years ago into a Tesla. You're going to be paying for whatever option is, there's going to be a cost associated with getting the easier, more professional option. So I gave you some insight in terms of the freelance options or some of the more packaged options that you can find. If you're working with an agency, this is going to depend a little bit on where you are in the country. Obviously, agencies based in major cities are going to be more expensive than they are in local areas. I would say the smaller the shop is, the more affordable it's going to be because you're working with a smaller team. Sticker shock is a real thing, though. I would say that if you're looking at an agency of our size, if you're coming in for brand strategy, you're looking at anywhere, and this is the category of which we sit, as little as $10,000 all the way up to $150,000. Chances are, as a startup, you're not going to spend in that upper echelon, but $10,000 or $15,000 might be a bitter pill to swallow, depending on what you need to get done. If you're thinking about it through the lens of naming, again, that can range from $5,000 to $50,000. Think of it in the sweet spot. It's somewhere in the $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 you can usually get through naming. If you're looking at identity, that's where it really goes all over the map. And unfortunately, each shop is a little different. I can say that, expect to start in a $50K category if you're looking for an agency to do your identity, and it will definitely go up from there. And there's also some room to go below that. These are big ticket items, which is why for an MVP, it may not be the best bet to go to an agency. However, there may be one thing that you get from the agency. Say it's the brand identity, and once you have, the brand strategy, that then starts the foundation, and you then can independently look for more affordable options outside of that. For website design and development, again, it's all over the map. You can go to a development company that's going to build you a site, but maybe the design isn't as good looking. You can go to a design company and maybe the development's a little weaker. There's a lot of different options there. You're going to pay for something out of the box, probably at least $30,000 for a website to be designed by a company, an agency, but really expect that to even go up from there. It can be 60 or 100 and so forth. So just making sure that you're asking, when you're looking for different agencies, if you're at a place where you can afford to spend tens of thousands of dollars on something, that you're asking each agency the same set of questions. And so in that instance, there is something called an RFP, a request for proposal, that's usually put together, in which case you're saying things like, this is the name of our company, this is what we stand for, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, this is the personality of what we do, this is the time frame, and this is the budget that I have. Understanding those things gives you a jumping off point. And then you can start to evaluate the same answers that you're getting back from each agency and figure out, one, which is the best fit, which I cannot tell you how important that is, and two, which one fits into your budget and has the availability that can fit within your timeline. I think the most valuable thing that you can pay someone to do for you is brand strategy. Mainly because it's akin to trying to be your own therapist. It's not to say that you can't do it. It's not to say that you can't reach out to other resources and help them find the answer. But having a professional that can guide you through that process and help you extrapolate from that what your game plan is for the rest of the life of your brand is a really useful exercise. I think it's a great place to spend money because even if you're cash poor now or time poor right now, having that basis means you can pop back into brand whenever you're ready to reinvestigate it because you've essentially made the playbook. You've provided the groundwork for yourself. So I think that's probably one of the most important things. Again, I would also go back to, where is your product found? Is it found digitally? Is it found online? Is it found in a store on a shelf? Is it a professional service? All of those things matter in terms of where you're investing in your brand. You want to invest in your brand where people are most likely to see it and make a choice to buy it, not necessarily thinking about what's the marketing campaign? Those things are valuable too. But if we're looking at a confined amount of money and a confined amount of time, when you're thinking about exploring into brand strategy, in my opinion, is 100% the way to go. And I often get asked by clients, well, what is the value? And how do I know? Nike probably didn't do brand strategy. Why do I have to do brand strategy? And I will often tell them well, I went to college and you went to college. Can you say that had anything to do with your success? It's hard to tell. But it probably helped you get there. So I think just because it's invisible to the customer and a client, which is why it is very hard to spend money on something like that, it goes against the rule of thumb. And I think it is important because it provides alignment, which means every piece of communication, every articulation that you put out from your company is going to come from a unified place. Because a lot of times what we see is people that get too far down the road before they start to look at brand have a very fragmented brand. And as a result, they've leaked business from that. And what you want to do is once they're in the net, everybody stays in the net. You don't want to create a situation that creates confusion or miscommunication or misinterpretation. So even if you have to self-create some of these things or work with freelancers for these things, again, a brand strategy document is the type of thing you can hand to anyone, and you have a very clearly articulated idea of what your brand is, what it stands for, and what it does.